have you ever wondered why some people work hard for years, yet still feel disappointed when life does not go the way they hoped? Many people believe that success is shaped by a few big decisions. But in reality, our lives are shaped by hundreds of small decisions made every single day. There is an old story about a young samurai who learned this lesson the hard way. Kyoto, Japan, spring 1704. A young samurai named Ren often felt frustrated by his lack of progress. There were days when he trained harder than anyone else, studied late into the evening, and went to bed believing he was finally moving closer to the man he wanted to become. Yet, despite those efforts, his life never seemed to change as much as he expected. What Ren failed to notice was that he judged his life by a handful of good days and ignored the hundreds of small choices made in between. To Ren, success always seemed to be connected to the big moments of life. He believed progress was made on the days when he trained harder than everyone else, when he spent long hours studying, or when he pushed himself beyond his limits. And like many people, he believed that only the great efforts would determine the direction of his life. As the months passed, Ren's frustration continued to grow. The harder he tried, the more confused he became. One evening, after finishing his training, he made his way to the small garden where Master Takeda often sat in silence. For a moment, Ren hesitated. Then he finally spoke. "Master, I train, I study, and I work harder than before. Then why does it feel as though my life remains the same?" Takeda listened patiently as Ren spoke about his efforts. The young samurai described the long hours of training, the books he had read, and the determination he had carried with him for months. In his mind, these were the moments that defined him. These were the moments he remembered whenever he thought about his future. Yet, as the conversation continued, something became clear. Ren spoke proudly about the days he had trained harder than anyone else, but barely mentioned the afternoons that disappeared without purpose. He remembered the promises he had kept, but rarely thought about the promises he had postponed until tomorrow. He counted the victories that made him feel proud and ignored the countless small decisions that filled the spaces between them. Takeda simply listened and smiled. Most men, he explained, make the same mistake. They believe their lives are shaped by a handful of great moments, when, in reality, their lives are being shaped every single day. The hours spent training mattered. The books Ren chose to read mattered. The promises he kept mattered. But so did the hours he wasted. The excuses he repeated, the tasks he postponed, and the habits he allowed to grow unnoticed. Life, Takeda explained, does not separate good choices from bad ones. It quietly records them all. Every action leaves a mark. Every habit strengthens with repetition. Every decision, no matter how small it may seem, is added to the person we are becoming. That was the lesson Ren had failed to understand. He had been counting only the actions that made him proud. Life had been counting everything. Seeing the confusion still lingering in Ren's eyes, Takeda decided not to explain any further. Instead, he gave the young samurai a simple challenge. For the next 30 days, Ren was to pay attention to every decision he made, no matter how small it seemed. Not just the important ones, not just the decisions he was proud of, all of them. The hour he woke up, the way he spent his free time, the promises he made to himself, the excuses he accepted, the habits he repeated. Takeda wanted him to understand something that could not be learned from a lecture. It had to be experienced. And so, over the following weeks, Ren began to observe his days more carefully than ever before. As the days passed, Ren began to notice things he had ignored for years. He noticed how often he delayed small tasks, convincing himself that he would do them tomorrow. He noticed how easily a short conversation in the village could turn into an entire afternoon, and how often he woke up with good intentions, only to waste the first part of the morning doing nothing important. None of these actions seemed serious on their own. In fact, they appeared so small that Ren had never considered them a problem. But when he looked at them together, day after day, week after week, he began to see something he had never seen before. The same way a few pages read each day slowly increased his knowledge. A few wasted hours each day slowly stole his progress. The same way daily training strengthened his body. Daily excuses strengthened his weakness. And for the first time, Ren realized that life had been counting both. There was another lesson Ren slowly began to understand. Improvement required more than simply adding good habits to his life. It also required removing some of the things that had been quietly holding him back. For years, he had never questioned how he spent his time. A few extra hours in the village, long conversations that led nowhere, afternoons that disappeared without purpose, small distractions that seemed harmless because they were part of his daily routine. Yet the more carefully he observed his life, the more he realized that every choice came with a cost. Time spent on one thing could no longer be spent on another. If he truly wanted to become the man he imagined himself becoming, he would have to make difficult decisions. Not forever. Not because friendship was unimportant. Not because rest was wrong. But because some things had become habits he followed without thinking. And those habits were taking time away from the person he wanted to become. For the first time, Ren began investing the greatest portion of his time in himself, in his training, studies, in the promises he made to his future self. And although the changes seemed small at first, their effects continued to grow with each passing week. Months later, Ren found himself standing in the same training yard where his frustration had once begun. The village had not changed. Even his daily routine looked much the same from the outside. Yet something was different. He was different. The tasks that once felt difficult had become normal. The discipline that once required constant effort had become part of his character. The promises he once broke without thinking were now promises he kept. And perhaps most importantly, he no longer searched for quick results. He understood that meaningful progress was rarely visible from one day to the next. Instead, it revealed itself over weeks, months, and years. Looking back, Ren realized that the greatest changes in his life had not come from a single decision. They had come from hundreds of decisions, of mornings, choices, and hundreds of moments when he had either moved closer to his goals or further away from them. Only now could he see what Master Takeda had been trying to teach him all along. Life had been counting everything. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, Ren sat beside Master Takeda in silence. For a while, neither of them spoke. There was no need. The frustration that had once followed Ren everywhere was gone. In its place stood patience, confidence, and a quiet understanding that progress was not something to be chased. It was something to be built. Takeda looked at his student and smiled. "You see it now." Ren nodded. For the first time, he truly did. The old master rose to his feet and slowly walked away. As Ren watched him disappear into the fading light, he realized that the lesson had never been about discipline, success, or even achievement. It had been about responsibility. The responsibility to choose every day who he wished to become. And for the first time, Ren understood that the life he wanted was not waiting somewhere in the future. It was being built by the choices he made each day. The message of this story is simple. Everything counts. This idea is often referred to as the Law of Accumulation. When you read a book, learn a new skill, go to the gym, go for a run, or spend time working toward your goals, it all counts. Those small actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they begin to shape the person you become. But the opposite is also true. The hours spent scrolling through social media, watching endless television, staying up too late, making excuses, or neglecting your responsibilities count as well. Every action has a consequence, and every habit leaves a mark. Nothing is truly neutral. Each day, your choices are either moving you closer to the life you want to build or further away from it. That is the power of the Law of Accumulation. The small actions repeated over time eventually become the life you live. So remember, focus on making more positive choices than negative ones. Do it consistently and patiently. And over time, you may be surprised by how much your life can change. If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more lessons on discipline, self-development, and personal growth, be sure to subscribe to Path of Discipline and join us on the journey. Thank you for watching.